Welcome to Good Game. I'm Hex.
And I'm Bajo.
This week on the show, we check out Abyss Odyssey from developer Ace Team, who are based in Chile.
Did you know that on average, Chile is only 150 kilometres wide?
Yes, I like to think of it as the juicy strip of bacon fat on the bacon that is Argentina.
I want bacon. Now I can think about it as bacon. Have you got bacon? Also this week, we head for the stars in not one, but two first plays with Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous.
And we put the pieces of the day together in 4 p.m.
Plus I chat to Telltale's co-founder and CEO, Kevin Bruner. But before all that, can you name the game?
PM is an indie game that's made its way onto Steam through their Greenlight program. It's basically a system by which indie developers can submit info about their game online, and if enough of the community support it, Steam will distribute it via the store.
It's potentially a great avenue for indie games to get exposure, but I think if we've learned anything in the instance of this particular game, it's that a cool trailer does not a cool game make.
4 PM calls itself an interactive narrative experience, and I'd say it lives up to that claim.
Yeah, the game began as a student project at the National Film and Television School in the UK. But after completing the course, developer Bajo decided to push on with the game until it was a playable release.
You play as Caroline Wells, who wakes up hungover in her messy apartment and must make her way to another boring day at the office.
What do you mean he's in tears? I don't care if Mr. Jackson's huddled under his desk, sucking on a pacifier, calling for his mummy.
Immediately you're faced with pretty awkward movement mechanics and some fairly limited interaction controls.
No breakfast today, Caroline.
Well, to be fair, I think you're still a bit drunk from the night before, but even so, it's not great.
Before long, you're abruptly transported through memories of the night before. And probably the most interesting mechanic for me was that drunk on the dance floor sequence. It's a well-crafted drunken simulation moment.
Dang, girl, you're looking good.
Yeah, it actually does a great job of recreating that environment.
Oh, girl, you can't wear that top of that skirt.
Here, your objective is to dance, drink,
Give me a drink.
Lady, you're a mess. Seriously.
and then try and make it to the bathroom before you vomit.
Sweetheart, that's why we pay for these parties.
I got excited about the vomit of something actually happening, but then it wouldn't let me vomit on the bartender. Disappointing.
Yeah, I thought my dance moves were so badass that I wish that remained an option for me to just bust out at various intervals throughout the game, but alas, it was not meant to be. Further progress through the game sees you trying to escape the boring office so that you can drink again.
Hello again. How are you feeling? How about today you give me a little less attitude and I make this one on the house?
And then suddenly you're on the roof, and the narrative drama of this game escalates from a 2 to about an 11.
Every time they try to help you remember it, every time you get close, you drink yourself into oblivion. You can hardly remember yesterday, but you just keep drinking.
And then the game kind of just finishes.
Hold me, lead me right back home.
The whole thing is about 20 minutes long in total.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. I understand this is a student project, and you can kind of get a sense of the kind of game the developer was trying to make, but it awkwardly snaps you all over the place without any sense of cohesion. I do understand that this is a narrative device to tie in with the character's alcoholism, but the game is just way too short to deal with a story like that.
Yeah, and look, props for the intention to create a game with a strong message and deal with some serious themes like alcohol abuse. But I agree, it just wasn't executed in a way that allowed those themes to have any impact whatsoever.
It seems like this game is a short build-up to a series of choices you make at the end. But on a second playthrough, none of the choices you make have any change in consequence except for the last one, so what's the point in making them?
Yeah, and even the ending had me scratching my head a little bit. There's just not a whole lot this game gets right, unfortunately.
What the hell are you doing, Caroline? You're just gonna go crazy again.
I did have a thought though, this would be a really intense game to play in VR.
Yeah, can you imagine that nightclub scene in virtual reality? Ugh.
Good. Got some moves on you.
You would vomit in real life as well as in game.
Gross. What did you think overall?
Well, I think it was a valiant effort, but it also serves as a bit of an indication of how tricky it can be to get a clear idea of how a project will turn out based on its early stages. Scrolling through the comments on 4PM's pitch page prior to its release, you can see people making hopeful and optimistic comparisons to games like The Stanley Parable and Heavy Rain, but of course the end result is far from that.
Yes, I think if you're going to charge money for a game like this, you need to be upfront about what's actually on offer. And even though this is priced quite low, I felt really disappointed by what I got out of it, so I'm giving it 2 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It's a 3 from me. And now it's time for the news with Goose.
Thanks, guys. Subscription-based MMOs generated nearly $2.9 billion in 2013, according to a report by Superdata Research. Of the revenue, World of Warcraft stands head and shoulders above the rest with a 36% market share. However, the biggest surprise on the list was Star Wars: The Old Republic. After a shaky launch, the Force has proved strong with this one, as BioWare's first MMO pulled in a total of $165 million for 2013. Talk about Return of the Jedi.
This is only the beginning.
Yes.
Award-winning composer Marty O'Donnell has settled his lawsuit against former employer Bungie. After being let go in April, O'Donnell pursued legal action in order to obtain payments and benefits which he claimed were still owed. A Seattle court has sided with O'Donnell, ordering Bungie to pay over $95,000 to compensate for unpaid work, damages, and legal fees.
I am your shield. I am your sword.
And now, sports. Esports, that is. The Australian Cyber League's Sydney event recently took place, hosting competitions across 5 games, including some prestigious qualifiers. The FIFA final came down to Muzza 255 and Prodigy V. Prodigy's aggressive attacking game saw him go undefeated in the tournament.
Prodigy is going to represent Australia at the ESWC finals in Paris.
In Call of Duty Ghosts, Avant-Garde faced off against Team Storm in the grand final. The young members of Team Storm caused a huge upset, winning 5-2. The pressure of Team Immunity's League of Legends fighting skill proved to be too much for ex-Dreamers. Immunity's victory has won them qualifying spots in the Oceania finals. In StarCraft 2, King Kong's Zerg flooded out competitor Iagas with a 4-0 victory.
King Kong, he wins ACL City!
It wasn't all bad news for Iagas, as both he and King Kong qualified for the next StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. And finally, in Super Smash Bros. Melee, DK remained undefeated throughout the competition, using Marth to take down Tedith's Star Fox in the grand final.
Too strong. GG.
Well played, Dave!
Congratulations to all the winners, and that's all the news for this week.
Thanks, Goose. When it comes to space exploration, trading, and combat games, 1984's Elite is the granddaddy of them all. What a game. It was one of the first games to ever have 3D graphics, or an open world, or procedural generation, earning it an easy spot as one of the most influential games ever.
We've been checking out the premium beta of the latest in the series, Elite Dangerous. Now, full disclosure, I've never actually played an Elite game, but in my defense, the last one came out in 1995, and I'm pretty sure my PC at that time could only run text games.
Yes, it has been a while. Apparently, publishers just weren't that interested in funding space games. So instead, the developers got money for games like Connectimals, and Connectimals now with bears.
But thanks to the explosion of crowdfunding, the series is making a grand comeback. And even though this beta is just a small slice of what the final game will offer, I was immediately taken aback by the sheer size and scope of it all.
Yeah, you can just keep on scrolling out, can't you? Space has a habit of making you feel very small.
It really does. There are only a handful of systems available to check out in the beta, but it's still enough to give you a pretty good sense of how flying around and exploring is going to feel.
And it all feels pretty good. I never got tired of locking in a star system, charging up my hyperdrive, and launching off.
Ready to engage.
And how cool is it when you drop out heading straight into the sun?
Warning. Temperature critical.
So cool. Even just zipping around the solar system at a few times the speed of light is awesome.
There aren't any proper missions or contracts available yet. All you can really do is go around exploring, trading, and fighting with AI or other players.
But the fact that there are other players is a first for the series. It's essentially an MMO now. The universe is filled with everyone all going about their business, affecting the in-game economy, and either helping you out or causing you grief.
One thing I'm not so sold on yet is the combat. Things just felt a little slow and sluggish. Everyone just drifts around lazily firing. And ships take a lot of hits, so it just doesn't feel very punchy.
Yeah, admittedly, our ship was a pretty basic one with just one puny laser. There are some single-player scenarios which give access to some better weapons and rocket launchers, and the combat there was definitely a lot more satisfying.
Yeah, that did feel better, but it's still just a bit slow and not quite as intense as I'd like it at the moment.
Speaking of slow, it takes ages to earn enough credits to upgrade anything.
Yeah, it's certainly a commitment.
Yeah.
After about an hour or so of trading, I managed to make about 500 credits, I think. And with most upgrades costing tens of thousands of credits, I was just not ready for that grind.
Yeah, you can earn credits a bit faster through combat and collecting bounties, but that's still such a slow process, especially with a weak ship. Also, being a beta, progress wipes are expected, so I wasn't really willing to spend heaps of time upgrading things when it's just going to get wiped anyway.
Yeah, having said all that though, I can totally see myself losing days to this, just exploring the galaxy, working my way towards that next upgrade or amazing ship in the final version.
Warning. Temperature critical.
And it's borderline crazy what they've got planned for the final game, isn't it?
Yeah, the final game, they want to offer up the Milky Way galaxy at a 1-to-1 scale. That's pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look at the galactic map, it's daunting to think about how many star systems are in just one slice of the galaxy.
And apparently they're basing as much of the galaxy as possible on actual scientific data. So the 150,000 or so star systems we know about in any detail are replicated in the game to the best of their ability. But the other 400 or so billion star systems will be procedurally generated using the best models we have for how these systems form.
400 billion is a number I just can't even comprehend.
Yeah, I know. I think the biggest challenge for them is going to make it feel worthwhile to actually go and explore all of these star systems. It's all well and good to build a galaxy, but it'll get pretty dull if there's nothing to do in it.
Well, apparently there's going to be planets, space stations, and ships that you can walk around and explore. And no doubt all sorts of other awesome sounding stuff in the final version.
They've certainly got their work cut out for them, but from what I've seen so far, I have a good feeling about this game, Hex. I think they can pull it off. We also had a quick look at it with the Oculus Rift.
It's pretty cool being able to look around your ship. And that extra freedom to just track a target with your head can really help out in a fight.
One thing I loved is how the menus in your ship are activated just by looking at them.
Yeah, I mean, they almost felt like they were designed to be used with the Rift. Unfortunately, the low-resolution screens of our development kit made it almost impossible to read those menus, didn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty unplayable, but at least we got a sense of the immersion, and I think VR could add a lot to this game.
But we can't talk about Elite without also mentioning Star Citizen, which we've been playing a little bit of as well. And for anyone who hasn't heard about it, Star Citizen is the other massively ambitious crowd-funded space game on the horizon.
Ally eliminated.
And it's coming to us from the creator of Wing Commander, Chris Roberts.
It really does feel like Battle of the Space Game Titans at the moment. Now we just need an X-Wing versus TIE Fighter to throw its hat in the ring.
Well, hopefully Battlefront 3 can scratch that itch. But back on topic, one thing Star Citizen has over Elite is cold hard cash.
Yes, where Elite made $3 million in a crowdfunding effort, Star Citizen appears to be raising all the money ever.
To be more accurate, it's raised just shy of $50 million US at the moment. They seem to raise an extra $1 million every few weeks, don't they?
Indeed they do. I think it's worth noting that both of these games are in early betas right now, so there's actually some pretty unique payment walls to get through if you actually want to play them. Elite's is fairly straightforward, but steep, asking you to lay down £100, or about 180 Australian dollars for access, which is much more than the final game will actually cost.
While Star Citizen is slightly more complicated. First you have to buy a Starship package, which ranges in price anywhere from about $40 US all the way up to $10,000, depending on how much you don't want your money. Then you also need to buy a $5 pass to get the dogfighting module.
It's interesting that both of these games are actually charging a premium to play an unfinished game. Normally with crowd-funded projects, you get a discount if you jump in early because you're helping out with development, you're backing the game, but not with these ones. If you want to play, you gotta pay.
Yeah, I guess there's just such pent-up demand out there for these games that people are willing to pay a premium to get in early and, I guess, help fund development.
I understand the demand. In case it's not obvious, I am frothing at the mouth to play both of these games. Scrooge McDuck piles of money aside, what we have access to of Star Citizen so far is just a hangar bay and a small combat arena, without any of the grand exploring and trading we got a taste of with Elite. But all of that stuff and more is coming down the line.
This is the kind of combat I like, Bajo. It just hits that Battlestar Galactica-style dogfighting that I really crave.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the enemy fighters look like Cylon ships.
But it's also just the way the weapons work, and especially because of that little zoom that you can do. It's so satisfying locking on a missile, launching it, and zooming in as it bursts the enemy ship into 1,000 tiny fracking pieces. It's so cool.
I love how all the guns have that little bit of tracking too. You just need to have them in your sights, and your turrets do the tricky work of leading that right amount.
It just feels a lot punchier and more detailed as well. Ships get locational damage, so you can lose specific weapons, or thrusters can be taken out. In one case, I managed to lose everything but my canopy and was just left spinning around.
Well, both games are certainly looking promising, and it's just so exciting to see a bit of a resurgence with space games. And don't even get me started on No Man's Sky.
Oh, I can't wait to get my Starbuck on. Nothing but the rain.
So say we all.
4, 3, 2.
In recent years, we've really seen storytelling with video games start to mature, and one of the developers leading the charge is Telltale Games. Recently, I spoke to their CEO and co-founder, Kevin Bruner.
What made you make the decision to put this choice consequence in your games? Because it's such a big part of Telltale Games.
I think it's something we wanted to do for a long time, and when we started the company, you know, we talked to a lot of different publishers and developers about wanting to do this kind of game, and nobody was really doing it, so we had to build a studio to do it. And I think we spent the first part of Telltale's life building that studio, and once that studio was built, then we got to explore all these crazy ideas that we wanted to, and that's, I think, where you're really seeing us blossoming now.
What is it?
You're not as bad as everyone says you are.
We look at what we do as playable stories, and we always start with the story first. We always start with the script, the characters, and the writing, and then we try to figure out how to role play into that and how we offer that to people. But we don't start with a game mechanic like shooting or driving. We really just start with what story we want to tell, and then how do we get you into that story.
Now, something your kids are really gonna like.
Thanks for warming them up for me, butthead.
I think one of the most interesting things as storytellers, as interactive storytellers, is we can learn who you are as the player. In some ways, our games are kind of like psychological profiles of you.
Get out!
When it says the game will remember that, it's something we're collecting, and then we try to tailor the content specifically to the person in front of us. So it's kind of like customized storytelling for each person. And I think that's where you get that feeling of like, wow, this game really speaks to me. It's because the game is trying to speak to you as an individual, not a mass audience. It's really trying to change itself to kind of wrap around what's important to you.
I want my parents to come home now.
I think that might be a little while, you know?
I think the hardest thing is, since the games are small and generally we give you, 3 dialogue options at a time, those things have to matter a whole lot. I mean, we labor over those extensively. So it's when the content is kind of small and concentrated like an episode is, everything goes under a huge magnifying glass, which I think in general kind of makes the games more satisfying because there's not a lot of filler content or like running from one side of the world to the other side of the world, but it raises the stakes on how compelling each one of those things needs to be.
We need to get the tour car moving.
I don't understand.
Trust me on this one, please. Start the car.
All right, hang on.
We like serialized stuff because we're big fans of television, like Sopranos and kind of that reemergence of scripted drama.
You gotta be on your act.
So we built the studio from day one to do serialized television-style games. And not only from a production and execution point of view, but from a design point of view, it's a different medium. I think it's just as hard to make an episode as it is to make a big epic game or to make a series. It's a different problem to solve.
Over the next 5 chapters, you will witness things that baffle you, horrify you, even disgust you.
So we work with a lot of different franchises, from Borderlands to Walking Dead to Fables with Wolf Among Us. And first, we always start as big fans of a franchise. There's always somebody, usually a lot of people in the studio, that are just crazy passionate about whatever we're working on. But then we try to start and build back up from that and say, okay, now what is really the essence of it?
Oh, hi! Didn't see you there. You probably know that a game like Borderlands doesn't just make itself. As a matter of fact, it's the combined effort of many talented individuals. Oh, hey, Steve. How are the kids?
I can't think of 2 games that'd be further apart, a Telltale game or a Borderlands game.
Yes.
How do you make a shooter work for a branching narrative game?
Well, that's the thing. People look at the Borderlands games and think of them as shooters. But when you sit down and you talk with Anthony and Matt and Randy and all the Gearbox guys, it's not a shooter universe. It's about as rich as Star Wars. I mean, they know every single detail. So being able to kind of crack that open, then it makes a lot of sense that we can give you moments that you might run by in the shooter version, but we can dwell on them and make them really interesting.
Trust Handsome Jack. You want every part of this insanity.
We're always kind of scared that we're pushing boundaries and are people going to still respond to it. We're pretty ambitious about what we think playable stories are. And since we're not shoehorning from one kind of medium into another, I think that makes our treatments really credible and really resonate with people. And you do that for a decade with a lot of talented people, and hopefully it starts to pay off. And I think that's what people are seeing now. We're getting a real kind of refined way of getting stories out there.
How will we know it's them?
We'll know.
It's interesting seeing which universes Telltale choose to explore. I'm keen to see what they're going to do with Game of Thrones.
Oh, anything's going to be better than that RPG we played a few years ago.
Yeah, that was some bad times. Well, moving on, horror awaits you down in the abyss. Abyss Odyssey is a 2D brawler brought to us by Ace Team, who are based in Santiago, Chile.
Ace also brought us the weird and slightly terrifying Xenoclash series.
What's this about?
It's about punching people in the face, so you'll like it.
And don't forget, Hex, they also brought us the Batman mod for Doom 2, which I found via a website which has been running since the 90s and looks it. Oh, that hyperlink color. But Abyss Odyssey is far from weird. In fact, it's a beautiful looking fighter with some really interesting ideas.
The story goes like this.
It began long ago with a warlock.
A warlock has fallen asleep and his dreams have become real. Nightmarish creatures manifest and crawl their way up through the ground to harass the townsfolk above. It's a creative and thoughtful setup to a game like this, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the premise works really well. Each journey below is randomized, kind of like the warlock is having a different dream each time you traverse it. And each area ranges in difficulty, so you can pick your path to a point depending on how much you want to challenge yourself. Levels are littered with a variety of twisted creatures and NPCs.
Bienvenido.
And once you work your way down to the bottom, you can take on and hopefully defeat the warlock himself. And that'll take more than a few goes. This game is pretty hard, isn't it, Hex?
Yeah, it loves to be a jerk. Between vines stabbing you, rocks crushing you, environmental hazards and fast-moving creatures all piling on you at once, it doesn't pull any punches. Plus, the warlock fight is particularly hard. If his creepy chicken arms don't get you, then the school of fish he shoots from his crotch probably will. I have to say, Bajo, that particular attack really surprised me.
Yes, that was a new one. Haven't seen that one before. What I like most about this game is how high stakes the difficulty is, and that makes you really crave those health orbs that drop. Because when you die, you lose all your gear and then you're sent right back to the top. That is, unless you're rich enough to buy a checkpoint token, and I rarely was.
I think the idea of this game is to level up as much as possible, learn to be a better fighter, and then slowly become strong enough to take on that final boss.
Yeah, it's a bit like a roguelike in that way, isn't it? At least the special moves you get are permanent, and they make the game feel even more like a fighter. I found that just one new move would change my strategy entirely and keep things interesting.
Plus, you can also carry a second soul. They have their own health bar and attack style, so there is strategy involved in when to use them most effectively.
And when you die for reals, you instantly take over a generic soldier and try and finish the fight.
I will avenge you, Katrien.
And if you survive that and get the soldier back to the character altar, you can then resurrect the main character.
You're alive.
I'm in your debt for bringing me back.
I really like this mechanic. It's kind of like a second chance, but it still relies a bit on skill.
It's a great idea, isn't it? I also liked how whatever you pick up, whether it's keys or gear, they all hang off the character models.
It's beautiful animation, isn't it?
Yeah, all the creatures move so well, and I just love those deep, painterly backdrops.
I do have some issues with the moves though, and it's more about the controls really. The special moves and general attacks take patience to learn and get used to, but I just wanted everything to feel more responsive. I found that when I did any kind of attack, I'd be stuck in that animation for just that little bit too long.
You have to be sure of your moves, don't you? There are ways to put in some defense skill points and make things a bit more fluid without as many interruptions though. So I think those combat animations were all intentional.
Yeah, but even so, I just felt like the enemies also preempted my moves, like they knew what I was going to do before I did it, and it just felt unfair and a bit clunky.
Yeah, but then I think that just in turn makes you switch up your moves and treat this more like a fighter, and I like that. Although I did get a bit frustrated when just trying to double jump over something. If you don't do it just right, then you end up accidentally jumping off the wall the wrong way. It was all just too fiddly.
Ah, that drove me crazy. I couldn't see any point for jumping off a wall. It just got in the way. It seems like a pointless addition.
There is co-op and versus, but you're locked to the one screen online, and we couldn't get an online session that was playable. And this was due to a low population of people playing. But local co-op with friendly fire on is quite fun and chaotic.
Overall, Hex, I quite like this, but I never got used to that combat system. Even 4 or 5 hours in, I was still struggling with it, and more importantly, I didn't feel like I was getting much better at it, and I just couldn't get past that. So I'm giving it 5.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Well, some unique ideas for this small brawler and that beautiful art style just outweighed my niggles, so I think it's worth playing, and I'm giving it a 7.
My sayings give wisdom to some. Care to listen for 100 gold?
Did you name the game for this week? It was Zanzan, a Doom 2 mod from 2000. Taking control of the monster known as Zanzan, you set your sights on destroying the world because you believe it's full of evil. With only 3 playable levels, the game was short, but it did have multiple endings depending on your choices. And it's our Name the Game this week, as it was made by Edmundo Bordeaux of Ace Team, the same developer behind this week's Abyss Odyssey.
Next week, an Odyssey of a different kind, and the remaster of Oddworld, new and tasty.
And we shift, slide, and skid our way through an open world in a first play of The Crew.
Voting has now closed in the Good Game Top 100. The winners list is under heavy lock and key 24-hour security. Just sitting on my desk. And on the 12th of August, we will reveal the top 100 as voted by you. But there is still time for you to submit your own user creations celebrating the game you love the most. Whether it's a song or a picture, anything you like, just submit it through our Facebook page.
But for now, don't go anywhere because I'm going to take you on a trip down memory lane exploring some of my favourite moments from Good Game, as well as a special behind-the-scenes look.
Well, until next week, Bajo out.
Hex out. Except not really, because I'm going to be right back.
Yeah.
I'm just going to change my top or something and then I'll just be right back here talking about some cool stuff.
Awesome, I'm going to go home.
It's a Hex special. You going to leave?
Yeah, see ya.
You're not staying for the Hex special? He'll be back.